Hi, I'm Paul Bowman, CEO at Wexer, the digital fitness specialist who deliver over 25 million fitness experiences per year for our partners worldwide. Welcome to the Wexer podcast, where I'll be speaking to industry experts to bring you insights and advice to support your business journeys. In today's episode, I'll be chatting to Akshay Verma, co-founder of FITPASS, India's largest app-based full-stack corporate wellness and engagement platform, which is making fitness affordable and accessible. Lovely to have you on, sir. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you very much, Paul, for having me.
And as I mentioned offline, a lot of our listeners are not knowing too much about the India market. So it'd probably be awesome just to hear about FITPASS and explain what you do.
Essentially, FITPASS, the core mission is to defeat inactivity. And the reason we chose this and the reason we're building this is because inactivity is just very expensive. And accessing activity in India was even more expensive.
Yeah.
So medicines are cheaper, but accessing fitness was very expensive. And as a young economy where we keep talking about our demographic dividend or being the world's youngest workforce, our average age is 28.
Right.
And if you look at the salaries people earn and the charges of the fitness centers, there's a big gap. The fitness centers are more expensive than the average monthly salary.
Yes.
Which meant that suddenly fitness, which is basically access to good health, was inaccessible.
Nice.
And that is where FITPASS stepped in and we said, okay, let us take this problem head on and try and solve it. So we are a universal membership to everything fitness and wellness. So once you have a membership, you get access to 7,500 fitness centers across the country. So you can work out the way you want, where you want, whether it's yoga, gym, Pilates, Zumba, Krav Maga, rock climbing, swimming, no matter how you want to stay active.
Yep.
Then you get access to our AI coaching modules, personal nutritionist services, access to Wexer's content, which is global workouts at home. Then you get access to doctor consults, pharmacy at home, health checkups. So everything you need to stay well, feel well, be better is on one application called the FITPASS mobile application.
What a mission that you're trying to solve. I applaud you.
Thank you.
For our listeners, it's the question I ask everyone: is did you find fitness or did fitness find you? What's your journey?
That is a great question. I think the problem found us and we found the solution.
Okay.
But personally about fitness, I think so. I used to play football for Delhi, and then I used to play cricket for Oxford University. So I was generally somebody who was physically active. Yeah. And I think being fit or fitness was an outcome of a physically active lifestyle.
Sure.
And so I think it was just part of me. And then that is when I came back to India and I couldn't do it anymore. And there was no full stack service. And my co-founder, who's not part of this conversation, but I'm just bringing her into this anyway, she faced some issues and she needed to access multiple centers to be able to do strength training and a cardio activity, and that just became really expensive. And that's when we said, okay, we'll solve the problem. But I think overall, I think people find fitness when they're ready to understand that there comes a time when you start aging, longevity, etc. Like when it just hits you. And in a country like ours, where the average heart attack age or cardiovascular disease age is 10 years younger than the West, so the average age for a heart attack in India is 33.
Wow. Well, and heart attacks are the major killer in India, similar to
there's a report from WHO that says inactivity is the biggest killer, right? Because people don't move, and all these diseases are they're called preventable lifestyle diseases, and what prevents it is a healthy lifestyle, which includes some activity, good nutrition, and I think that's where the problem is. So, is the main killer cardiovascular diseases? I think I think it's that type 2 diabetes, things that are preventable, things that are reversible, things that will happen if you don't move. So I think now in India, I think people have found fitness after COVID. I think that's what the big trigger was. I think the government understood that we aspire to be a $5 trillion economy, right? And and the government also understood that if people fall sick, they're not going to buy white goods. They're not going to buy consumer goods. And if you're only buying medicines, you don't become a $5 trillion economy.
No, right? Totally agree.
And I think that is a big mindset shift. I think people are finding fitness now.
And more about you, because of course you come from an investment banking world. So how did you go from investment banking to entrepreneurship in FITPASS? Well, how did you do that? And then I guess caveat with, we have a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to us. So and what would be your biggest challenges that you faced along that journey as well?
Okay, so that is okay. There was no intention of starting up. I had come back to India on a sabbatical. I loved my life in London. I loved it in New York. There was no reason for me to. Of course, I understood that India is a place that was growing and there was always opportunity.
Yes.
But when I came back in 2013, 14, that was not the time I wanted to start up. Maybe in the future, I would have come back and done it, but that was not the time. And when I came back and I spent some time here, and then my co-founder had some problems and I had some problems, and we said, okay, let's just give it a go. And it was meant to be just an experiment, and just to see if we could do something in a small area where we lived, and in that neighborhood, to see if we could solve it for us and maybe a couple more people. And then once you get involved with the problem, I think maybe that is when I discovered that I have what it takes to solve the problem. And maybe my co-founder Arushi, who's also my younger sister, maybe we can collectively solve this problem. And then that's when we just committed ourselves. She used to work with the World Bank, so she quit that. I quit my banking job, and then we started this. But there was no intention of coming back to India and doing this. That is not how it happened.
And what was your big, like, if you're saying, your top three biggest challenges that you've had to overcome, if it was either personally or financially, like what was that?
Top three. So the first one, I think, was timing.
Yeah.
We had started this in 2015 in India, where India was still solving basic necessities. When I say basic, for anyone who understands Hindi, we call it roti kapda makan, which means we were solving food, essential items like fashion, or fast fashion and clothes, and real estate, so like housing. So companies like the big companies in food today, like Zomato, Swiggy, had just started up at that time. And there was a lot of competition. There was Tiny Owl, Food Panda, most of them who shut down. But India was still experimenting how to solve food. They were experimenting how to solve mobility. Ola, Uber, these guys just come in. They were still solving logistics. So Flipkart and Amazon couldn't fulfill that time. So they were still solving that. So in that period where India was trying to sort of build their basics and the startups were just burgeoning, we came in and said, hey guys, let's fix fitness. And nobody cared about fitness. Right?
I understand.
You had a different set of priorities. There's a priority. There is a wallet share, and there is an investment. There's an investor thesis, right? Where everybody thinks. Okay. So one was timing, and then came there's a competitor who came up, and it was founded by two very experienced entrepreneurs, second-time entrepreneurs with beautiful exits behind them, and exits to the tune of where they had returned the whole fund to the fund.
So they've done it right.
They've done it extremely well, right? And so they came up in the fitness space, like a horizontal player, and they raised a lot of capital. And at the same time, so there was this person emerging with lots of capital, and we had 19 copycats. So we were fighting both ends. So one was to prevent the copycats, so to make sure our unit economics are right. And then work in a climate where the investors are like, guys, those guys have $500 million. So unless we can give you 501, there's no way you can compete. Right? So any dollars less than 500 is going to lose.
Yes.
And I think going back to the drawing board, pivoting, so from figuring out what either we had to shut down or we had to solve it. Yeah. And I think we took some steps, which have now turned out beautifully. But at that time, we had no idea. It was a lot of gut. It was a lot of research. It was a lot of just. So today, when I look back and we say that, would we have made the same choices given the information? And if the answer is yes, we feel like it was a good decision. So I think two challenges were that. And the third challenge was definitely personally, because we don't come from a business family. We're both first generation entrepreneurs. And we're siblings, right? So the good thing was that you always trust.
Could be a podcast in itself.
Yeah, it could be. So there's a book about us, in fact, in India, which a professor wrote. But the point was that it's great to work with your sibling because you have a lot of trust that everybody will bring their absolute best. Yes. But the flip side is that you also took it home. right?
Yeah.
Every conversation, right? So maybe you look at your family as the place where you decompress and you're able to but here, family was business.
That's a strategy conversation. Your family dinners.
Correct. So I think that was a challenge that we had to, because there was so much trust and love, we could figure out how to move forward with it and how to divide work between us, responsibility areas. But I think that was a challenge, because when you just walk into a room and say, okay, we're going to build something, and then when you start building, there are lots of skill sets where you are complementing, and there's lots of skill sets where you're overlapping.
Sure.
So I think these are the three biggest challenges.
That's a lovely message, though. You think about, there's been a lot of successful entrepreneurs that have done things with their family, and I think that it all comes down to trust, because as we know, the higher you go up and the more successful, also a little bit the more lonely you get as well, right? So it's I think definitely having that family member as you're succeeding to have knowing that they've always got your back is a rare thing to have in any business.
Correct. 100%. Like, I would strongly recommend, if you can start a business with your sibling, you should.
Okay, I like that. And then you speak a lot, and I love how you speak. By the way, you come across really, really clear. What would be, for the new generation coming through of fitness entrepreneurs, what would be your, the messages that you would like to convey when you speak?
I'm going to limit myself to the Indian ecosystem.
Yes,
because I think every society consumes fitness in their own way, and there's a different way to think about fitness or good health or access to a better life. And a lot of factors drive it, right? Aspiration, ability to pay, willingness to pay, supply, a lot of things. So for anybody who's coming into entrepreneurship, and even more so fitness entrepreneurship, I think one thing is, just like fitness, it's perseverance and hard work that pays, and it beats natural talent hollow. So you may be naturally talented, but if you're not capitalizing on it with perseverance and hard work, it doesn't work. In an economy like India, things are slow.
Right.
A lot of things are built on trust, because if you have merit, is why somebody sits across the table with you.
Sure.
Right? So your merit is done. Merit is your first point, but that is not the only point that will get you through. That is the point that somebody meets you. Now you need to have trust. Now, whether it's your customer, whether it's your investor, whether it's your employees, any stakeholder in your ecosystem that will drive you towards success, you need to build trust.
Yeah.
And that is something where I think people think that, where I come across a lot of fitness entrepreneurs, and now that fitness is booming, we have a lot of guys who come to us either for funding or for strategic reasons, or just to have a chat. And one thing I noticed is that everyone thinks they've found a problem and they're the best people to solve it. And I think this impatience is what, I think I was like that when I was 27, 28 when I started. Definitely that, we've hit the nail on the head.
Naive like that. Sometimes you have to be.
And you think, absolutely, like you have to be blue-eyed, you have to be very optimistic, and you feel that just because you have a great solution, it's going to win. But you forget that it takes years to get the execution right, because the idea is great, no doubt.
Correct.
But if you don't get the execution right, it's not going to work. And getting that execution right requires a different skill set. And that's where trust, putting the customer first, putting your stakeholders first, ability to prioritize, ability to sacrifice, ability to research, make information-based, evidence-based decisions. That's where all of that comes in. So my only recommendation to entrepreneurs is that perseverance and hard work is what you should sign up for. And then you have to always commit to being better than yesterday, like whether it's the information you take, whether the way you do your research, whether the way you optimize them, you have to be better than yesterday.
Yeah, no, that's. I think that's really sound advice. It was actually weird. I was on a panel and we're talking about the same thing, and they were like, "Would you recommend entrepreneurship?" I said no. I said every single person that comes to me, I recommend no, because I think that they have to have so many no's, and they've got to be willing to persevere through those no's to then actually prove everyone wrong, because that's how hard it is. Like me and you both know that it's not an easy journey.
Absolutely
we're all sitting here with much success, which I'm sure that we're both very appreciative of. But the grind was the key factor. I think the more no's that they get, sometimes the better it is.
100%. I think it is one of the most humbling journeys, because there are so many people with excellent academic backgrounds, beautiful professional, structured success, and then you come into the unknown world of entrepreneurship, and it is a different ballgame.
Agree. No, it's very well said. And then, of course, so you mentioned a lot about it. So Indian's fitness market, it's evolving so rapidly in terms of rise of digital platforms, and as you mentioned. But I guess, how is FITPASS leveraging technology to address the unique challenges that India have in terms of accessibility, affordability, cultural diversity?
I think that is a very good question, and that is something we try and solve every day. So you understand it, we're a very large country, very densely populated, very aspirational, very young, yet the only way we can get to everybody, if it's a 1.4 billion population, even if you want to get to 100 million people, the only way to get to them is through technology. And the only way people will consume your service is if they feel it is made for them. So which means hyper-personalization. All of that, these things you can only achieve through tech. And I think where we're at is that most of the aspiration resides outside the metropolitan cities. So it is in what we call the tier 2 cities that are now rising to become tier 1 cities.
Right.
And that is where disposable income is growing, the economies are thriving. And that is where you want to get. So the way we try and leverage technology right now, the one problem we're really trying to solve is how can we help people through FITPASS inculcate better habits or healthier habits. So what is it that we do? What are the nudges? What information are we able to get from them that we can encourage them to take healthier decisions? And I think that is where our largest resource in terms of our mind share, our finances, our team is being deployed. If we can develop our own learning model to be able to help people, help Indian people, help this community of people which have a different decision-making set and different triggers than everybody else in the West. How do we help them make healthier choices? So I think that's the technology solve that we're trying to do.
Nice. And then I guess how are you further enhancing that? Is you kind of touched on AI in terms of hyper-personalization. Is that where you're kind of putting all your chips in, so to speak?
Not all our chips in, but I think it is more about how are we analyzing the information? Because right now we ourselves are receiving so much information. It is going to take some time for us to be able to understand where the correlations lie and where the causalities lie. And I think that is what we're trying to do, is to mine our own data, then come up with nudges. And I think this process is not going to happen like no matter how much we push our team saying that, okay, we have to do it in 6 months, but I think it's a forever journey.
Yes. Agreed. And how do you find, like, as another, I think we probably sit in some similar meetings. Like I find with we know from a content point of view, it's all about local stars that are winning the game on a regular basis, really uploading. But the thing is that the market is so fickle with that. So, they will die, the local stars, what we're seeing is between 9 to 12 months, they will actually die off and people want new ones to come through. So the data kind of in a way lies to you, because it's as soon as you actually have the similar type of persona that's delivering that content with a new fresh look, it actually will improve. And I guess that is the data that we're starting to realize. But like, how are you using the data set that you have? Because you've got so many different endpoints that we're coming at it from just a pure media content play. You're coming at it from so many different angles. Like, how do you use all the data to make better decisions, I guess is my question.
Well, I don't know. The honest answer is we don't know. The honest answer is we're still trying to figure exactly that point out. Like what I said before, like where the correlations are and where the causalities are. Because a lot of data, when you just look at them in isolation, makes so much sense. And of course, that if I'm being healthier, my doctor consults are low. Okay, my health expenditure is lower. Fine, but where is that? Is it because you were working out, or is it because there are so many other factors that because you were eating right? Because there's just so many other factors you have to get right. Like you are emotionally in a better state. There's so many things that are going on with the human being at the same time. That it is very difficult to say because of this, because nothing in their life is ceteris paribus, right? All variables are moving.
And it changes. We've got I don't know if I've shared it with you actually, but we've the thing that we try to do to map the understanding is all about confidence. So the different levels, the higher confident user you are, the more you like to do it. But the thing is, it changes in fitness so much. So me walking into a reformer Pilates session, I'm straight away going to be in low confidence, and I actually need more support than I do need to be inspired. But if you put a barbell in my hand, I need to be inspired, right? And it changes so much because the variety reality changes so much. So we've got it's constantly changing, and then of course, depending on mood, depending on food, depending on the latest thing that they've listened to, it's hard to start to shape that to create that habit loop. Like that's the interesting the thing that we're, I guess, both of our companies are trying to battle with.
And I just want to add here that the point you made about yourself spoke of a very enhanced fitness consumer.
True.
Right?
Yes.
Today, India is waking up to fitness.
Yes.
So currently, the habit that we're trying to inculcate is not that whether you want to do Pilates or do strength training.
Yes.
What we're trying to inculcate is to just move.
Just
any activity better than zero activity.
Yes.
I think that's where India is at right now. Like so I think what we're trying to solve for is for a more nascent economy, nascent rise in consciousness.
It's even, do you feel comfortable? Do you feel confident just moving, like walking, running? Exactly. I understand.
So I think our biggest competition is the couch. If we can get you off the couch, and if we can get you to tie your laces, your propensity to move is way higher. But if I cannot get you to tie your laces, we've lost you.
So I feel like I want to ring the Indian government and just go, look, you just need to support FITPASS constantly.
They do. In fact, that's very kind of you, but they have done. So now India is one of the only countries where insurance covers FITPASS and access to fitness.
So they have put their money where their mouth is.
This happened smack in the middle of COVID lockdowns. That's what I was saying. The government also woke up and understood the guys. We can't have people falling sick. They have to stay fit and be healthy. So, but what that means is the regulation is there. Yes. But still, there's so many stakeholders who you have to manage to ensure that the regulation gets implemented. So that is where we are.
And as you said, you need the adoption curve moving forward in terms of the overall fitness consumer. But you've got the government support. That's really good to hear.
I think the next 5-7 years we'll see. I think that is the hockey stick moment that a business in India needs, where you get some regulatory support, which we've been able to do. And now I think once the stakeholders accept, like which basically the insurance companies accept, because everybody needs to see, they want data to show that, okay, if you're healthy, then your claim ratios are lower, or if you're healthy, your claims are delayed. So that will come in the next 2-3 years as we produce it, and I think then there'll be a flip.
I'm going completely off script now, but I find your journey so intriguing. Like, would have that happened if COVID didn't happen? Like, would have you got that support in those regulatory changes?
So there's no way of answering that question for sure with certainty. But we had been working with the government since 2017 to bring about this change, because we had proposed it in 2017 for the first time. And then there was constant dialogue about it, lots of sandbox experiments done around it. However, so while we were still engaging with them and we would keep getting a warm yes as to this will happen, suddenly, without communication, in the middle of COVID, the regulation just came. And at that time, there was no engagement. And it just, I think everybody just understood.
And
it just came.
But that's actually a great story. Like, how many operators are constantly talking, or insurance companies, because of course we're sitting on both sides, talking about how to bridge that gap. And I think government have a role to play to bridge that gap in terms of, solving obesity, solving inactivity, exactly the things that you've said. But they kind of...
And this doesn't cost the government, right? But what it does show is that it creates a lot of awareness very quickly. And it creates a lot of acceptability very quickly, and it brings such things into common conversation. And I think that message is very important to spread. And I think that's where the government really stepped in, because it's not costing them anything to tell insurers to be able to cover this. They've left the choice. But now that they've said it, all the insurance companies are talking about, the sales reps are talking about it. They're doing customer surveys as to, should we include this? Will this increase your likelihood to buy? Suddenly everyone's accessing data as to how much the claim ratios can go down, which target age groups are the best ones to target. So suddenly it's part of common conversation, which would have taken us dollars to be able to achieve. Has just happened.
Well, because the only other market I know that is the Singaporean government. So similar model with it, but they're incentivizing it with money, right? Like the more active you are, either digitally, physically, in terms of just step counts, running step, all the rest of it, they'll actually reduce your premiums every single month based off.
So that is where we are headed. So that is what we're working on, and how do we reduce premiums? But the other country that also does this really well is South Africa. So there are two companies out of that called Vitality, which is the Discovery Group, and then there is MMI Multiply, which is MMI Holdings.
Okay.
So these are both South African listed companies who are doing this extremely well. Where in South Africa, I believe I have to relook at it, but I think they had said that you cannot have differential premiums for different people. So even if I know that you're slightly unhealthy, I cannot charge you a different premium because you're unhealthy. So because that they thought was discrimination. So because they were coming from that mindset, the insurers, because they had to charge everyone the same premium, had no choice but to invest in making you healthy. So they incentivize healthy behavior, and that is how it in the 90s started. And now I think Vitality is in 80 countries.
Yeah, of course.
I think they entered Pakistan 3 years ago, and they're still waiting for a license in India. I think when people like that come in, I think the economy will change even further.
Yeah, good insights. And then I guess last question, I promise, because I know you're a busy man. Like your future aspirations and goals, what are they personally or and professionally?
Oh, now that I'm about to, so I'm like 2 years away from 40. So I think it keeps changing. My personal ambition, my personal goals, and now that I have a young child at home.
Yes, it always changes a lot.
100%. So I think when you become an entrepreneur, you think you have control of your time, which you actually do not.
No.
So I think having control of my time is something I really hope to somehow achieve as a personal aspiration.
Have you got strategies that you're trying to employ that you can share?
There are lots of books I'm reading which should give me the strategies, but I feel like once the baby comes in front of me, all tools are they just fail. Like
I know a lot of our listeners can understand how you're feeling.
And I think professionally, I think the aspiration is that now that we suffered heavily during 2 years of COVID, and when there was complete lockdowns in the country, and now we've had 2 full years of operations, and we've done with everyone's wishes, we've done extremely well, and we continue to do extremely well. And now we command 52% of India's market share. So I feel the next 2 or 3 years professionally, we really want to consolidate. There are lots of acquisition opportunities. So the only thing professionally I want to do is, like I said before, make informed choices and make decisions that in the future, if I look back, I'm able to say I still make the same decision. So I think that's my professional aspiration.
I like the thinking. And then how do people connect with you?
Oh, like personally?
Yeah. If they listen to this and just want to talk.
Oh, like that. Okay. So I'm on LinkedIn. I'm very responsive, which I hope not to be in the future because it takes it gives me a lot of digital time, a lot of screen time. But I'm very responsive. That email, everything's publicly available. So I'm generally approachable. I pride myself on being approachable.
No, it's a good trait, and I've always felt that from our partnership. And then any events that you're attending as well, coming up?
Not globally, but I may go to China for the sport fair. Just to see what's out there, because everyone talks. I've never been to China. I've never been too.
Everyone talks about it. I've never actually been. So this will be the first time as well.
Yeah, so it's going to be in May, and I felt like okay, but unfortunately, I don't know if I should say this, but India doesn't have any more direct flights with China. So earlier, this would have been a 5-hour ride, but now it's like you have to go via Bangkok or Hong Kong, 10-hour layover.
Makes it a little bit harder.
But I feel that maybe that is the arbitrage because it is no longer accessible. Yeah. And it's hard to get to. Maybe that's where the arbitrage is, which is why I feel like I should go.
Yes.
So that's China.
Yeah, no. Good. Well, look, Akshay, I really, really appreciate your transparency, your honesty in terms of how the business is going and you personally as well. So, look, thank you for being on the Wexer podcast, and I appreciate you sharing your entrepreneurial journey with us.
No, thank you very much, Paul, for inspiring us on a daily basis and for supporting our partnership and for having me here.
Of course, always.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Cheers.